Alex. Hi, everybody. So today, Alex asked me to talk about ban the box. So to start with, having a criminal history has prevented applicants from being hired, regardless of how long ago the criminal record took place, how minor the infraction was, and maybe regardless of how good of a fit they really would be for the job. Over 70 million Americans have a criminal record. And those with a criminal record face high rates of unemployment and recidivism. I didn't know what recidivism was years ago, but recidivism is the likelihood to recommit a crime, basically. And then disparate impact discrimination comes into play here when sometimes you have a seemingly neutral policy and it affects more than one race, and that's what is trying to be avoided here. And then sometimes there's criminal background checks that don't really distinguish between what an arrest and what a conviction is. So there's a little bit of statistics and background as to why ban the box exists. But it's really like, what is ban the box? And I want to start with, before we talk about what it is, let's talk about really what it's not. And for today's purposes and other purposes, those of us in New York know about Article 23A. Ban the box is not Article 23A. That's something different. That's a much more involved topic for another day. It is also not a salary history ban. That's another topic for another day. So ban the box does not have to do with Article 23A, doesn't have to do with the EEOC guidelines for criminal records on a federal level. It's another topic. It's ban the box simply has to do with the box. What's the box? So recently, in the last few years, people have really been calling it the Fair Chance Act. And that was just a legislative play on words. And some of the more recent jurisdictions and states to pass laws have been calling them Fair Chance Act or Fair Chance laws. But essentially, ban the box and fair chance laws are interchangeable. But let's go back to the original term, ban the box. Ban the box started in 1998 in Hawaii. Hawaii was the first state to pass a ban the box law. So what are they banning? So we can all remember, well, maybe not all of us, maybe not like Alex, Tyler, Vivi on here, a couple of my colleagues, but back in the day on a job application, it used to ask, have you been convicted of a crime? Have you been arrested? Have you been convicted of a misdemeanor or a felony? And usually there was a box that you had to check. And when we say ban the box, it's simply that little checkbox. Now, it's not literal in that, well, if you have a line, it doesn't apply to you. It's anytime you ask those questions, but they call it ban the box because most forms had the box. Now, what a lot of people don't realize, or they realize is, now that things have evolved and there's now background checks and other parts of the process, there's also automation. The box doesn't necessarily just exist on an application for employment. It can also exist on a consent for a background check. So we have the option to ban the box or to have the box when the clients have their subjects go through and consent to and authorize a background check and fill out their information. So when you're thinking about complying with ban the box or fair chance legislation, you got to think about all the points along the process that your applicants go through where they might be faced with a box. So basically, you cannot ask that question. And let's just say the question is like we ask in New York State, we ask, have you ever been convicted of a misdemeanor or a felony? In New York State, that's where we're headquartered, a crime is defined as a misdemeanor or a felony. In New York State, under the New York Human Rights Law, you cannot take adverse action on somebody based upon arrest information. It either has to be a pending case or a conviction. So we ask, have you ever been convicted of a misdemeanor or felony? Then we also ask on some of our forms, do you have any pending criminal action against you? So basically, that's the stuff that you have to be careful with. Now, when they say ban the box, it doesn't mean ban it forever. You have to ban it to a certain point in the process, okay? Most of the laws require you to bring out the box after you've made a conditional job offer. So that's pretty consistent, but it's not always the be all end all. You really got to know the little laws of all the jurisdictions. And it's not only on a state by state level, there's also cities and counties that have their own legislation involving ban the box. So it's very involved for some of our clients, especially if they operate in multiple jurisdictions, even multiple places within New York State. And we're going to get to that in just a little bit. So what you're looking for is, when a ban the box law exists, basically, who does it apply to? Some ban the box laws are just out there for public employers, for the government, for county offices in that particular county. Some ban the box laws, like Rochester and Buffalo and New York City, apply to private employers. So that's the first thing. What type of employer are you, and does the ban the box apply to you? Okay. So then once you determine if it applies, if it doesn't, obviously go on and you don't have to worry about the box. If it does apply to you, then the next thing is, at what point can you ask the question? So we've had people think that because you have to ban the box means you can never ask that applicant if they've been convicted of crime. That's not it. It's when you can ask it. So some laws are as light as once you've made initial contact and shown some interest. So say you do telephone interviews. If you've done a telephone interview and you've liked somebody, but say you want to do the background check before you do the formal interview and get a lot of people involved in the process and spend a lot of everybody's money and stuff like that, then if you've met that requirement of the ban the box, that you've made initial contact and done a telephone interview, then you can do the background check. But if your jurisdiction says you have to have made that conditional offer, then you have to keep going through your hiring process, make the conditional offer, and then you can ask the question, have you ever been convicted of a misdemeanor or felony? Okay. Now, what's happened this day and age when we can't, and all of our clients, you're struggling to get candidates in the door, so you're hiring as fast as you can. So our clients have gone from interviewing, running the background check, making an offer, to interviewing, making an offer, running the background check. So most of our clients are making conditional offers, and we are as well. You know, we're feeling it. We're making a conditional job offer as soon as we can. Conditional on the background check, the drug test, everything coming back okay. If you do pre-employment physicals or other things, all of that being okay. So most people have converted to conditional job offers at this point in time. So at that point in time, then you start the background check, so we can ask that question. So for our clients, even though you're in a ban the box jurisdiction, if you're making a conditional job offer, before you start the background check, you can then ask that question as part of the authorization and consent that the subject goes through. So for a lot of our clients, we aren't really changing anything. But those are the questions and the situation that you have to ask yourself is the point in time. So if generally, does the law apply to you? At what point in time can you ask that question? And how does that work for your processing? Okay. So like Buffalo announced ban the box for the private and public sectors in 2013. The city of Rochester did it in 2012 or 2014 in Rochester for public and private sector. And then it was like 2015, New York City did it, and New York City just did some enhancements to theirs as well. They created a tiered system in New York City, if you can comply with that. If you can't, then there's some exceptions that you have to work through. But again, a lot of it in these jurisdictions has to do with if you're making a conditional job offer, then starting the background check, then you can let it go and ask that question, like through your background screening vendor like us. If you have that question on your application or some other hiring document, you have to look at what point in time you're having the subject fill that out, or do you want to get rid of that question on a job application? Say somebody comes in for an interview and your process is to have them fill out that job application before they're done. Most of the times you're going to want to make sure that the box is not on that form because you haven't yet made a conditional job offer. We do things a little different. We get the application on file because it's got certain information that we want on file on everybody, but generally it's after we've even started the background check. It's usually like the first day of employment or right after we made the conditional job offer. So in our case, it doesn't matter if that question is on there. And then we ask it with the background check too. So a couple of things that you need to look at is there a ban the box law in your jurisdiction? Where all do you have multiple locations that you're hiring people for? Checking all those locations. If there is a ban the box, at what point in the process can you ask the question that leads to the box checking, and how that flows with your process if you're doing a conditional job offer, and if that's the right time according to all those different laws that may come into play for you to go ahead and ask that question. So you got to kind of do a little self-assessment. I'm available on the side, so are my colleagues, to help answer any questions with that. But simply, what you really want to hone in on with the box is, what type of question, if any, are you asking in regards to an applicant's past criminal activity?